Today we're diving into something truly game-changing. We are unpacking the core concepts of Susan Jeffers' absolute classic, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Honestly, we're going to completely reshape how you view your own doubts, your daily anxieties, and those massive, hidden capabilities you're probably sitting on right now. If you've ever felt totally paralyzed by the unknown, well, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get into it.
Just think about it for a second. Have you ever held back from applying for that dream job because you just didn't feel quote-unquote ready yet? Or maybe you've stuck around in a completely draining relationship or kept your mouth shut in a crowded meeting simply because you were waiting to magically feel more confident before making a move. We constantly tell ourselves, I just need to wait until I'm not scared anymore. But what if waiting for that fear to disappear is actually a lifelong trap? What if fear isn't a stop sign at all, but a giant green light telling you that you are right on the edge of some profound personal growth?
So in this explainer, we're going to break this whole thing down into 5 quick parts. First, the illusion of fearlessness. Second, the 3 levels of fear. Third, reclaiming your personal power. Fourth, the no-lose decision model. And finally, building a resilient life.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the illusion of fearlessness. A lot of us operate under this completely false belief that once we gain enough experience or, build up enough money in the bank, our fears will just evaporate. We think, hey, if I just take one more public speaking course, I definitely won't be nervous anymore. Or if I just save up a little more cash, starting this business won't feel so incredibly risky. But the reality? The reality is entirely different. Fear is actually a natural biological companion. It travels with you anytime you stretch your boundaries. It literally never disappears before you take action. It only subsides after you step into the unknown. So as long as you're growing, fear is going to be riding shotgun.
And here's the real kicker. Once you realize that absolutely everyone, and I mean the most successful leaders, artists, and innovators on the planet, experiences this exact same fear, everything changes. You stop treating your anxiety like it's some sort of personal defect or a character flaw. Instead, you realize that pushing through it is just a mandatory requirement for progress. And honestly, taking that scary step is way less terrifying than the alternative. Pushing through fear is a walk in the park compared to living with that perpetual, heavy dread of feeling completely stuck and unfulfilled for the rest of your life.
Moving right along to section 2, the 3 levels of fear.
Susan Jeffers brilliantly dissects fear into 3 distinct structural levels. Level 1 is the surface stuff. These are the external things that happen to us, like an economic downturn, or actions we have to take, like changing careers. Then level 2 dives a bit deeper into our ego. This hits on our internal self-concept, vulnerabilities like the fear of rejection, failure, or just looking foolish in front of people. But it's level 3 that we really need to zero in on, because it is the foundation of absolutely everything else.
And that brings us to level 3. The absolute rock-bottom root cause of every single anxiety you will ever experience boils down to 4 little words. I cannot handle it. That's it. It all traces back to the subconscious dread that if something goes sideways, you simply lack the internal strength or resilience to handle the aftermath. Every specific fear you have, whether it's fear of a messy breakup or fear of losing a job, is literally just this one single belief wearing different masks.
So how do we fix this? Well, to completely dissolve that terrifying I cannot handle it belief, you have to drastically shift where you place your security. If your feeling of safety relies on fragile external factors, like keeping one specific job or clinging to familiar people, you're always going to live in a state of low-grade panic. Because, let's face it, those things can vanish in a second. You have to anchor your safety in your own permanent resilience and adaptability. When you genuinely trust your own internal strength to figure things out, no matter what crazy curveballs life throws at you, fear just completely loses its grip on you.
Which leads us perfectly into section 3, reclaiming your personal power.
You see, there are 2 totally different mindsets we can use to navigate the world. First, you have the victim. The victim spends their whole life surrendering power to external forces. They blame their boss, the economy, their upbringing, or just plain old bad luck. And when you're in that state, you feel entirely helpless, which naturally makes you terrified. But to break free, you must consciously shift into creator mode. The creator takes 100% responsibility for their life. Now, that doesn't mean blaming yourself when tragic things happen. It means taking absolute, total ownership over how you interpret, feel, and respond to those events.
And this part is absolutely mind-blowing. Did you know your daily vocabulary physically rewires your brain? It's true. Passive language like I can't or I have to literally sends stress signals straight to your nervous system, triggering your fight or flight response.
You're basically telling your brain you have zero control. To build an empowered mind, you have to upgrade your words. Start replacing I can't with I choose not to. Swap out that paralyzing what if I fail with an expansive, exciting what if I succeed. By intentionally using language that reflects choice and possibility, you literally build an internal atmosphere of resilience.
Okay, let's keep the momentum going with Section 4, the No-Lose Decision Model.
We've all been there, right? Freezing up when facing a major life choice, like moving across the country or switching careers. We freeze because we get trapped in what Jeffers calls the wrong decision paradigm. It's a super toxic mindset where we view life choices like some high-stakes Vegas gamble. We convince ourselves that one path leads to glorious victory and the other leads to absolute total ruin. And that creates this crushing, unbearable pressure. It leaves us stuck in endless overthinking, terrified of making one catastrophic mistake.
But Susan Jeffers completely flips the script with the no-lose framework. Think about it like this. Whether you choose path A or path B, both routes inevitably lead to growth, learning, new connections, and self-discovery. There are literally no wrong decisions here. If you choose path A and it's a massive success, awesome, you celebrate. If you choose path B and hit a bunch of unexpected roadblocks, well, you learn incredibly valuable lessons, you build your resilience, and you just adjust your route. When you finally realize that every single path offers valuable experience, that paralyzing decision dread just vanishes. You can't lose, you can only learn.
But for this framework to actually work, you have to learn to say yes to your experience. A huge portion of our daily suffering comes from just fighting reality. We're constantly screaming in our heads, this shouldn't be happening. But saying yes doesn't mean you approve of something painful. It simply means acknowledging the present facts without fighting them. Like, if you get passed over for a promotion, saying yes means accepting the reality instead of agonizing over how unfair it is. Why? Because when you stop resisting reality, you free up massive amounts of mental bandwidth to ask the most empowering question. Given this reality, what positive step can I take right now?
And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, Building a Resilient Life.
To make sure your world doesn't completely collapse when one single thing goes wrong, you have to build true emotional balance. Jeffers calls this the whole life grid. Too many of us pour literally 90% of our time, energy, and self-worth into one single domain, usually our career or a romantic relationship. But when you do that, you're putting all your emotional eggs in one very fragile basket. If that single pillar shakes, your entire identity collapses, triggering intense panic and devastation.
Instead, you need to actively nourish multiple, equal dimensions of your life. We're talking personal growth, your career, your health, hobbies, friendships, family, leisure. Think of it like a highly diversified investment portfolio, but for your soul. When your life is rich and multidimensional, a setback in one square, say a rough patch at work, won't destroy your overall happiness. You have a deeply anchored, fully supportive safety net of meaning and joy everywhere else to fall back on.
We also really need to talk about the scarcity versus abundance mindset. When we're trapped in fear, we become hyper-focused inward. We obsess over what we lack. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough love. It's a defensive, closed-off posture. The absolute best antidote to this is genuine contribution. When you shift your focus to what you can give to others, maybe it's your time, a bit of kindness, or just actively listening to a friend, you send a powerful signal straight to your subconscious. You're telling your brain that you possess abundance, which completely dissolves those defensive walls of fear.
Finally, take a hard look at your social environment. The people you spend time with have a massive impact on your ability to push through anxiety. If you're constantly surrounded by chronic complainers who project all their insecurities onto you, they are going to feed your self-doubt, for sure. You have to consciously curate your environment. Seek out positive, forward-thinking folks who celebrate your wins and challenge you to grow. When you build a circle of peers who actively face their own fears, courage just becomes your new normal baseline.
When we look at everything we've covered today, it really all comes down to this one brilliant quote. True courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to take action in its presence. You do not need to fix every internal doubt before you move. You don't need to read 10 more self-help books. And you certainly shouldn't wait for that perfect fear-free moment, because spoiler alert, it doesn't exist. You just need to build trust in your capacity to handle life, embrace the messiness of learning, and take action anyway.
So I'm going to leave you with one final, incredibly powerful question. Seriously, think about this. If you knew for an absolute fact that you could handle whatever happens, what bold step would you take today? Take a deep breath right now and really picture your answer.
Stop letting fear dictate the boundaries of your world. You have an unbelievable amount of internal strength and adaptability just waiting to be used. Embrace the unknown, feel that fear pounding in your chest, and step boldly forward anyway. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.